I want to talk a little bit today about being positive in life and approaching life with a positive attitude. Because, you know, sometimes I find myself, you know, in company where you're with a lot of people that are very depressed and depressing, and it can rub off on you almost sometimes, you know. And I always notice, you know, people that tend to get very depressed turn to things like alcohol. They can become very self-indulgent about how their lives are so awful all the time, you know. And I'm not talking here about people that have got, you know, clinical depression, severe forms of depression, major depressive disorders, because I mean that can be caused by a lot of factors that are out of their control sometimes, such as the genetics or very difficult circumstances indeed. I mean, things that can cause temporary difficult depression in people can be things like stress, for example. That can make a person very down. And health, of course, you know, if your health's very bad and you're going through a long period of difficulties, you know, that's pretty bad as well. That's a hard one to get round, and your hormones, and can also create difficulties and make you feel low and depressed and so forth. So, but I want to talk a little bit, but this will apply to that as well. But I'm talking really now about, you know, the usual small depressions, as it were, that affect most people through their life, you know. Because all of us want to have a positive attitude if we can, but often we let ourselves down. And I'd like to look at it from a sort of kind of a, you know, a point of view, from a spiritual point of view, a mystical point of view, I suppose, really, and get to give you a simple idea about what might be causing your own lack of positivity sometimes, and how we can perhaps reverse things and make ourselves feel more positive even when things aren't, perhaps, you know. Now, I think a lot of the problems that come with a depressive state of mind, or a state that is negative, let's say, it is basically laziness. Now, because the brain likes to optimize itself, doesn't it? It tries to do things, you know, it tries to function as easily as it can. So it bases its decisions very often. You base your decisions unconsciously on previous behavior. So this is what behavior is. And the problem is, you know, if we've taken a negative attitude in the past, we're likely to repeat that. So for example, you know, we encounter a difficult situation, the brain says, what did I do last time? I buried my head in the sand, or I ran away, or I panicked, you know. So you do it again. That's what we do, panic, or that's what we do, we ignore it, or we just whatever, you know. We take, or you can think of thousands of different ways that we avoid a situation and don't deal with what could be perhaps conquered better if we took a positive attitude to a thing. So what I'm saying is we have a sort of an automatic negativity, right? And that's based upon, I'm saying it's based upon lazy thinking, and it's based upon taking the easy route rather than taking the hard route, right? Now the hard route is to actually address the thing, deal with the problem and sort it out, right? The easy route is the runaway route, okay? So we have, unfortunately, all of us, a tendency to fall back on automatic behavior, and what I would call a sort of a sleep, you know, a somnambulism. We're not awake, you know. So the whole idea of spirituality and meditation and all those type of things is to wake up, you know. I mean, Buddha said, what's the difference between you, Buddha, and someone else? Someone said to him, or something like that, and he said, the only difference between me and others is that I'm awake, you know. And that's what we got to do. We got to wake up, and it might not be a great full enlightenment waking up, but we can wake up ourselves, you know. We can get away from this unconscious way of behaving, this lazy way of behaving, this falling back into past behaviours that constantly repeat themselves in loops, okay. And so it's quite hard, you know, when you're stuck in that, really, because you know you are naturally behaving unconsciously. So what you really have to do, in my opinion, is to train the attention, right? We have this attention, right? And everything we focus our attention on becomes stronger, So if we focus our attention on positive things, you know, we tend to become more positive. If we focus our attention on negative things, we tend to fall into those traps of negativity. And most of us want to be positive. So how can we master the mind, as it were? Well, I use a lot of techniques in my own life, which is basically concentration and meditation. Those two things help to automatically fix the attention. You know, you'll use techniques such as watching the breath, watching a candle even, you know, watching the thoughts. That's when it starts to get interesting, because once we can separate ourselves from those automatic behaviours, we start to get a little bit of control, you know, and we start to realise that we don't have to be pulled down by our own emotions, our own negative thinking, and we don't need to be the victims of things that well up from the unconscious and pull us into a black pit, because we've woken up, right? So we have to start really controlling the attention is the key, first of all. But once we start to control the attention and we start to think in a more positive way, it's like we start to cut new channels in the brain, right? The brain, I think of it like as you know, a river that's running through a thought, a flow of consciousness, and it tends to go down paths that it's familiar with, you know. So this is where our behaviour is again. You know, if we've always done it this way, we always do it this way, and our thoughts run down that way. But we need to cut a new channel, and in order to make those new positive channels stronger, we have to repeat. So that's how we train the brain. We train the brain through repetition. It's like when you train a puppy dog, you know, it won't use the litter tray, so you take it back to the litter tray, and it makes a mess again, so you take it back to the litter tray, and it does it again, and you take it back to the litter tray. And once it starts to use the litter tray properly, and we reward it with that, it starts to realise that that's the way to go. So basically what we're doing is we're creating a form of behaviour. We're modifying that animal's behaviour until it realises you poo in the litter tray, you know. So we are making the same mistakes in our life. We're pooing in the wrong place. You know, we are not doing things possible, making a mess of our life, as it were. I don't think I'll explore that image much further, but you know what I mean is that we need to cut new channels. We need to change deliberately our behaviour, and partly that comes through repetition. So this is where things like using these techniques such as observation of the breath, yoga exercises, generally using mantras and things like that, all those things are fabulous, right? But you know, okay, you've just started to watch this video, and I'm not going to take you down all those. There's no time to explain that at the moment. But let's find a way that you can do it to get started. Now, the thing to do is I think a good system is simply to interrupt your thoughts during the day, okay? Because you're running on automatic, remember. So when you get a point somewhere in your life, such as, you know, you might be in a queue for something, or you might be in a traffic jam, you know, stop, and you've got a few minutes spare where there's nothing going on, and say, what am I thinking and feeling at this present point in time? Ask yourself that question. Okay, it sounds silly, you know, you're yourself, but ask yourself and observe your thoughts. You think, yeah, I'm feeling reasonably all right, or I'm feeling a bit low, or I'm feeling I'm frustrated and angry at this queue and whatever. But what you're doing is you're stopping yourself and saying, how am I feeling? What am I doing? So what you've done in a very subtle way is separated yourself from being caught in the stream of thoughts. You've observed yourself. A very, very simple technique, self-observation. So you might find many opportunities in the day to stop, observe, and say, how am I thinking? How am I feeling? You know, what is it like? And just by identifying and seeing what's going on in your brain, you've made a start. Now, one of the best, most powerful ways to turn a negative thought into a positive one is to use a simple form of visualization. So, if you've encountered a negative thought that day, replace it with the hard route, that's the lazy route to keep thinking negative, but replace it with something that's going to be very positive. Now, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to fall victim to that. I'm not going to be lazy here. I'm going to really make a positive thought, right, instead of that negative one. All right, okay, you might fall back into the negative again, but make a real positive one at this point in time. And you need to get all the senses involved to do this. You know, I'm a very visually minded person, and I would suggest you use a very powerful visual image of what you want to achieve in life, what you want. You know, it might be even in that moment, you might be queuing for a coffee or something, and you think to yourself, right, I want the best coffee in the world, right? Okay, it's stupid, but think of the perfect thing that you're wanting to achieve there, right? And visualize it, maybe, you know. So all right, it sounds a bit crazy, a perfect cup of coffee, you know, anything, whatever it is you want. Build a real image so you can smell it, you can taste it, you can hear it, you can see it, and add emotion, real positive feeling. Yeah, I'm going to achieve that. That's marvelous. That's for me, right? And if it don't come along, don't be disappointed. Also cultivate a sense of acceptance of what God gives you comes to you. All right. So, because often we make our situation work by reinforcing disappointment, right? But there's in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, the Indian text, it says, "Give up the fruits," right? Now that's a weird one. Don't expect a result. You just do it for its own sake. You know, in fact, the idea there is you do it for the divine. You do it for your sense of spirituality. You do it for your Godhead. But you just do it. But you know, whether you believe in those things or not, just do it for its own sake. So it's life for life's sake. So you create a real positive image in your mind about something, that life is going to be much better. Something's going to come into your life. But at the same time, you accept that it may or may not come, right? So you're doing two things at the same time here, if you get what I'm saying here. You just do not worry whether it achieves or not. You let it happen, all right? But it's the act of creating the positivity in yourself that starts to actually change the world around you, right? Because what you're actually doing there is you're training the attention, and that you focus your attention on grows in strength. And you will find that you will attract into your life all the positive things, because you've started to generate a positive energy, a positive attitude. If you keep going down that lazy route of that way, oh, it's always been bad, it always will be bad. Yeah, it will be. I mean, it'll be bloody awful, mate, you know, because you'll keep attracting bad things into your life. But if you always think with a real positive imagery, God, I'd like to do that, you know, I'd love to be a great artist, or I'd love to be a great singer, or I'd love to be whatever it is you want to be, you know, and you keep creating those positive images, you'll find not only will opportunities come your way, but you'll now have within you the sort of behaviour that's capable of achieving those things, the sense of self-confidence that will throw you forward to take opportunity when it comes along. So it works on a psychological level, but it also works on a very, very deep spiritual level. Simple, eh? Be happy. Jane and I now do our spiritual work for our foundation. All the profits that come from things like our conferences and theatres and workshops and all those exciting things now go into this foundation, which ultimately has the long-term plan of building centres in the UK and maybe around the world one day. But meanwhile, we've been doing a lot of direct spiritual work with it. We've been going out, feeding people in India, giving to the destitute, giving to beggars. We've helped feed schools, helped orphanages, and we've even given cows to older people that have no other form of income. So mediumship can change your life, but it can also help people directly in the world. So go to the links at the end and find out all about what Jane and I are trying to do. And you can do a lot just by sharing these videos on social media. Help us get the word out. Help us to do something really good in this world. Click on this picture of me to subscribe to our channel and see all of our latest videos as soon as they're published. Or click on this next video for more of our stuff.